Hi, this is Father Michael Denk from the Prodigal Father, and I'm excited to be back here at St. Ladislaus, where we led the entire parish on Pray 40 Days last year. What I like about the Pray 40 Days parish program is that it really involves the entire parish, and so I'd like to walk into the church and actually introduce you to Mary Beth, who helped run Pray 40 Days at St. Ladislaus last year. I'm really delighted to be back at St. Ladislaus with Mary Beth, where we did Pray 40 Days last Lent here at St. Ladislaus, and Mary Beth was a huge part of that parish mission and also has been a big part of continuing on some of the prayer experience that they experienced during that time. So Mary Beth, what I loved about St. Ladislaus is they really went all out with the parish mission. So they not only engaged everybody, but they also really went ahead of time promoting the parish mission, distributing books, getting the books out there to people so that they were prepared to come and experience Pray 40 Days. And you were a part of all of that from the very initial meetings. I remember meeting you.
Yes, yes.
So what was your first impression of maybe what I do, Father Michael and the Prodigal Father, as well as Pray 40 Days?
Well, I think one of the first impacts was when we handed out the books. And we went house to house, and we were a little apprehensive about how people would feel about us appearing at their doors to give them a religious book. But the acceptance of them was wonderful. People were telling us that they were so excited. And one of the best parts of it was we went to one of the senior residencies and handed out 72 books at the one place, and every one of them took time to talk to us about it, and then we got feedback from them as to how wonderful it was. So that was one of the first fears we had, was handing out the books. But then as you led us at some of the meetings that we had early on, and we went through different things, we all became excited about what was going to happen. And of course, you just were a great leader through all this and got us in tune to a lot of different avenues that we could take to accomplish increasing our own prayer life. And that's exactly what happened here. We had probably the largest attendance at the 3 mission nights that we've ever had. We had involvement with music, through prayer, through all sorts of different activities during the evenings, and then people took those out into the rest of the parish. And once the mission ended, we had our prayer groups that met, and that turned into just a phenomenal experience. They were well attended. They were 6 days a week, which we didn't think people would attend, and they did. And people are still talking about it. And you can see a lot of us have Pray 40 Day shirts that appear. We wore those a lot as we handed things out, and people are still talking about it today, and that's unusual if you compare it to a lot of other missions we've had or missions we've attended. So it really turned out to be one of the most vibrant things we've done here.
Thank you. Yeah, one of the things that I really love about the program is that it's a parish mission, so you get that wonderful experience, but then it's ongoing. And what I think was so wonderful about St. Ladislaus, too, is they formed small groups so that every day of the week, people had an opportunity to pray together and to be led through the prayers. So it can be done on your own at home, but then there's also opportunities to come and do it together if you want to be led through the guided meditation. So I know you were one of the prayer leaders. What was that like to lead people in some of these meditative experiences?
Well, I'll be honest with you, the first time I did it, I was scared as to what was going to happen and how many people would turn out. We did it in our chapel here in the morning and in the evening, and then on the weekend we did it in the morning. I happened to have the Friday of the week, and the first day there were 14 people that attended after daily Mass, and we just fit in the chapel. And I thought, okay, so we can make it through this. And one of the first readings I did had to do with the dependence on God, where you didn't worry about what you were eating or how you would eat, where you would be, how you would dress, that you could just turn that over to God. And that's exactly what that reading that day did. And when we got done, we had one of the most wonderful discussions about how we all could feel just a sense of relaxation going through us. And I said, well, that's because the Holy Spirit's going to be our spiritual director from now on. And we just sat there like in peace. And each one of them were like that. And our group then proceeded to grow. We had to move out a little bit because we didn't have enough room. We had to sit a little closer. and more people kept coming. And that's so rare that that happens. Usually you have a lot the first time and then it just dwindles. And this didn't dwindle. And I got to meet a lot of people that I really didn't know closely. And we bonded with our prayer. And then they would come back the next week and they would share something about what they had read that week or how it touched them. And it just became such a wonderful experience.
Yeah. So I've been in the parish for about 11 years, and now I'm doing the Prodigal Father full time. And one of the things that I've learned is that when you get people together like that and lead them through an experience of prayer together, they have these wonderful exchanges. What I found that is so great about Pray 40 Days is that it's 40 days of doing this. So you get 40 opportunities of growing in this meditative and contemplative prayer. And the idea is that every parish that I take this to, that they will have prayer leaders that will lead a group every single day of the week throughout 40 days and lead them through these guided meditations and contemplative prayer. So Pray 40 Days can be done on your own. The people can do it at home. They can also do it in a group, and they can also do it with a prayer partner. So even a husband and a wife or a family can do it. I know that you had a prayer partner. Tell me about the experience of, I think accountability is so important, that we have somebody that we're accountable to, because it is a challenge, to pray every day and to pray for a significant amount of time. What was it like for you to have an accountability partner for Pray 40 Days?
Well, my prayer partner happened to be a very close friend of mine that we teach together here at St. Lad's. And we were trying to figure out a way that we could make each other accountable to each other, so we would do it. So on one day we would do the prayer on our own, and we would text each other after we got done. I never thought I would do that, but we did. The next day we would talk on the phone about it. The next day we would see each other at class. Then she would lead a prayer group on Thursday of that week, and I would do it on Friday. And then on Saturday we would get together and talk about what we felt about went on during the week. And I can't say that we didn't miss one or two times during it, but it was okay because we were keeping up with it. And just to share how each other felt about it and how our prayer groups were going and how we were using what we were praying about to change us. And it did. We handled things a little bit differently when we remembered some of the readings that we were doing. And it was just such a strong way to do something with somebody else. And it wasn't like we were on each other, but we wanted to do it. And it worked out really great. And we had never done that before, so we still do that.
Thank you.
We're not reading every day, we'll pick out a reading that each one of us enjoy, and then we'll share it with the other person either that day or the next. And
yeah, so part of the hope with Pray 40 Days too is after you do the entire program, you learn these different types of meditation and contemplation, but the idea is that you keep praying afterwards with it, not necessarily with the readings in Pray 40 Days, but the upcoming Sunday reading or the daily readings or any readings that come to mind. I want to go back and talk a little bit about the parish mission. You'd mentioned that it was the biggest mission that you've experienced here at the parish. Why do you think, what would you attribute to that?
I think it was at a time, where we were leading into Lent, and a lot of people were looking for a way to involve themselves in prayer. But I really think it came down to the people that were promoting it and what they were promoting. It wasn't putting any pressure on you to do anything. It wasn't the kind of thing where you had to be there each of the nights. We gave everybody information prior to when we handed out the Pray 40 Day books. And we just kept promoting to say, give it a try. And the more people that heard about it, they were curious as to what was going to go on. And we have a very involved parish here, but a lot of times their lives are so busy. And even if they could just make one, I think the first evening really dealt a lot with, I know you're all busy, turn off your phones, do something here, sit down and relax for a minute. And that's how the entire thing was approached. And it wasn't something where you're taking notes or had to do some homework really for the next night. You just came here and enjoyed the evening of prayer. And it just brought in all ages. We had families that brought their children. They participate in our Good Shepherd program, and so they know how to do a lot of this prayer, different types of prayer. And it went from the youngest to the oldest. And it just kept growing as we did it each night. So we were amazed when we got to the third night and we had just as many people, if not more, coming.
Yeah. What kind of feedback did you hear from the people? Because I know you're very involved in the parish. What was your sense of the feedback of what they experienced during that time?
Well, they truly enjoyed the book because the readings are just wonderful in there. It's like a highlight of read this and you'll feel connected to God. And then a lot of the others liked the fact that there was someone you could go to be with to pray. You were also able to be led by somebody who was just like you. It wasn't where you were sitting with somebody that was truly a spiritual director or, part of the religious life. So you could be very easy. It was very open with them. So they really liked the prayer groups. And then it was up to you what you did with it. So if you did a lot with it, you felt good. If you did what you thought was adequate, you felt good about what you were doing. So it was just an eye-opening, door-opening, prayer-opening to everybody that was here.
One of the things that I often hear from people with meditative and contemplative prayer, because you do spend some time in silence and meditation, a lot of times people think they can't do it themselves. I can't be in silence, I can't sit and meditate. But they think it's even harder for kids to do. And I've always tried to say, actually, it's easy for kids because of their imagination. Jesus said, turn and become like children, come to me. What was your experience of leading the kids in this type of meditative and contemplative prayer?
The kids were fabulous. I work with an age group of 9 to 12-year-olds. And we had done in all of our age groups, we do guided meditation. So they're used to sitting quietly and just thinking on their own. And I know it sounds like a surprise to a lot of people, but they are very good at it. They like that quietness as much as adults like it. So in the 9 to 12 atrium, we did a lot of with the senses because they're so good with their imaginations. And we did one in particular with the Last Supper. And it was getting close to Easter time, and we were getting close to Holy Thursday. And I said, well, now next week I just want you to come and listen to what we're going to do. And they were sort of like, what's she going to do now? So I took the reading, and I said, okay, now we're sitting in the upper room. And I showed them pictures of the upper room after I'd taken the trip to the Holy Land. And I said, I just want you to put yourself there. And I said, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to sit around the table. And they actually sat around the table. We were on the floor, and they were sitting around it as I was going through the reading. So first they were sitting there, and then I said, now I want you to think what you would say to Jesus as you were sitting there. And I led them through the entire reading. And when we got done, they didn't want it to end. I said, well, we'll continue doing this. And they wanted to do it each week. So we even got to the point where some of the children picked a reading, and they said, we're going to do it now for you. And they were very comfortable with it.
Wow.
And I walked out that day, and I was talking to Donna, my prayer partner, and I said, wow, you wouldn't believe what they did in that 9 to 12 room. And we just kept continuing that, and they couldn't wait to do it. And then, of course, they would come back in and say, well, guess what I did last night at home? I read this reading, and I had a scripture partner that was a 9-year-old in that class, and he used to come in and he said, I found a scripture reading that I really like better than what we did yesterday. I said, great, share it with us. So they like that. They really like to be part of what we're doing, and that was another real sort of indirect involvement of the Pray 40 Days. The kids were really enjoying it.
Wonderful. Yeah, and one of the things I really appreciated about this parish is everybody really got involved. And sometimes when you approach a parish or present a parish with something like Pray 40 Days, there could be a little bit of like, oh, I don't know, this seems like a lot of work. What's your sense on what it took to pull it off, and if it's worth it for a parish? Like, say you're talking to somebody right now that is considering it, but they're not sure.
We had a couple months of preparation, and the one gentleman that was spearheading it had seen it at another parish, and he wanted to bring it here, and so he was leading us, and the committee just kept growing. By the time we got to handing out the books, we had a lot of people handing out. We handed out like 720 books, which was quite a few books. And people kept I'll help with that, we can do that. And then once the 3 evenings came around, it was primarily directed by what you were doing. And then we added music and different things to that. And that went off pretty well for the most part. There were a couple of glitches along the way, like timing, with getting the children here because of you have to have it in the evening, but you can't have it too late. But it really wasn't one of the harder things that we came together as a team to do.
Yeah, you're pretty
'Cause
efficient.
we have a lot of good people here and a lot of good leadership that efficiently runs all of us and the things that we do. So it was excellent. It was all walks of life that were on the committee too.
Yeah.
It didn't matter what your age was or what your experience was. There were just a variety of people that jumped on to do it, and I think we probably had about 20 people at the beginning that were helping us get things together, and I thought it went really well.
So sometimes people will hear about this or see it through an indirect route, like even the person that you mentioned went to the other parish and experienced it. How would you describe me? Or, so sometimes pastors they want to know what the priest is going to be like because they care about their people. They want their people to have a good experience. So how would you describe your experience of me or the parish's experience of me during the missions?
Well, I think that was probably obvious with the long lines you had of people wanting to talk to you after, one night of the mission. But it was such a warm, inviting way to bring people involved in something that they truly believed in. And we're all looking for guidance in how to pray and what to pray for and how to go about it. And I think that it touched on all those different avenues. There was something there for everyone, and I think that's what made the difference. And you had such a nice, warm rapport with all the people there, and you left here feeling really good about what you had done that evening, and what the people that were here had done. And it was done in a timely fashion, and it wasn't dragging over, and you went and had to read something, that would take you so you could come the next night. You could drop in and basically get out of it what you wanted to, and there was something for everyone. And I think that's what really made the difference. It's not a lecture, it's not a showing of a movie. It touches on so many things. And so there was something there for everyone.
Yeah, in each parish mission I tried to do that. I tried to include all the different generations, some of the older people, some of the younger people, some of the youth. So there will be music, there's song, I usually tell stories. I do use some media where I interact with that. I try to capture everyone at different levels throughout the mission. A lot of my mission with the Prodigal Father is really helping introduce people to this deeper way of praying that a lot of us maybe weren't really introduced to as young Catholics, and it is a rich part of our church tradition. So I think my question for you is, having gone through this process, have you had any experiences where now knowing how to pray like this, it's really impacted your life?
As I think about this, being one of those Catholics that was raised that really wasn't comfortable with praying with others, it was always a prayer that we said by ourselves. After going through this and looking at the different ways to pray, a couple months back when my mom passed away, I was sitting with her the last couple hours of her life, and I decided that I was going to sit there and pray with her. She, I think, was aware that I was there, but many, many years ago, I would not have been comfortable at all doing that. And after going through this and a lot of other things in my life, I was very, very comfortable sitting with her and telling her that she was going to be in the hands of God soon and that I was going to pray with her at this point. And so I did. So for the last 15 minutes of her life, I sat there holding her and led prayers with her and said that she would be in good hands very soon, and that I was anxious for her to see God. And I couldn't have done that if I wouldn't have been through some of the things that we did in Pray 40 Days. Because I will say that leading some of the prayer groups made me a lot more comfortable with being able to pray with others and feeling that that's what I needed to do.
What a gift to share with your mother in her last moments. Lead us through some of that. Try to paint the picture for us of how you prayed with her, what you said, what she looked like, what you felt.
We were at Hospice of Western Reserve the last couple hours, and she was not really speaking to us or conscious, but I think she was aware that I was there. And I told her, I said, Mom, we're just going to go through the prayers that we've prayed our whole life by ourselves. And so I held her and I said, we started with Our Father, and then we did the Hail Mary. Then I said, I think maybe we'll just go through the rosary. So I said the rosary with her and put the rosary in her hand. And then I just talked to her about, what God had given us and, how she had lived her life and what she had passed on to me. And then when I got done, I just repeated the Our Father again, and with the emphasis on His will be done. We always used to pray that way, that His will be done, putting it into His hands. And I said, you've given me the strength now to be able to do this with you, and I hope that others will gain the strength by seeing the example that we're setting of what we're doing together as mother and daughter.
Beautiful.
And I don't think I could have done that many years ago. My mother was a very, very strong figure, and now I was playing the other side of it. And that was hard. But it gave me the strength to get through it. And so I do that all the time.
It's beautiful.
Now.
Yeah.
And that's what gets you through a lot of challenging things, is just turning it over and praying.
I think that's every parent's dream, is to have their children have that faith and that prayer life, and you were able to pray her into heaven at those last moments.
And I can tell you, I wasn't thinking about that the days leading up to that. I was trying to manage her care and do other things. And then it was 3 o'clock in the morning when the call came that we better get right back over there. And we got there and we spent the last hour and a half, and this is what I need to do.
Yeah.
So I did.
And I think that's the goodness of repeating these experiences over by yourself and with the group, is that it becomes natural for you. So you don't even have to think about doing it or how to do it.
And I did. I just did it. And I was there by myself with her, and I thought, this is what I'm going to do. So I was very glad that I did. To this day, I'm very glad.
Well, thank you, Mary Beth, for sharing that story and for your entire witness on all of this. I think that's the wonderful thing about Pray 40 Days, is as we continue to do this day in and day out for 40 days, it does become part of us. So we'll learn to pray meditatively and contemplatively so that it becomes part of what we do. So even in important situations in our lives, we'll then know how to pray, not only by ourselves, but with people. It's wonderful as a priest to come back to a parish and see later the effects and the fruits that are still there. Not only is Pray 40 Days a wonderful parish mission, but it's a wonderful time of an experience of prayer for the entire parish, of growing in prayer, of praying on your own, praying with a group, praying with a partner, and really incorporating meditative and contemplative prayer into your life. It's also wonderful to see that prayer is ongoing. So it's not only a weekend or a parish mission or 40 days of prayer, but even after that time, some months or years later, people are continuing to grow in their prayer lives. If you'd like to bring Pray 40 Days to your parish, please contact us so that we can continue to bring every person into this wonderful adventure of prayer.